Welcome back to our channel. I'm Alexa, your netball bestie, and together with Jenna, this is your Netball Besties. This is where we deep dive into SSN game analysis and what the netball world is currently talking about. We've just finished round 6 of the Suncorp Super Netball, and we have had some really exciting netball over the weekend. Some teams who are making their intentions very clear, and some who continue to struggle to meet their potential. We've also had some huge breaking news from Sunday's final game, as well as a bunch of rumours swirling about a potential return to SSN for one of our biggest superstars of the game, which we are very excited to get into. But first, let's get into our deep dive game analysis for round 6. Jenna, can you break down the games and scores for us?
On Saturday, we had the Mavericks versus the Firebirds, and the Mavericks took the win 71-64, followed by the Fever versus Thunderbirds, and the Fever took the win 67-61. Then on Sunday, we had the Swifts versus the Giants, and the Swifts took the win 82-69. And then the last game of the round was Lightning versus Vixens, and Lightning took the win 62-50.
So let's talk about the first game of the weekend. This was Mavericks versus Firebirds. So we saw a few of the same mistakes creeping in for Mavericks with their incredibly high penalty count, which just seems to be chasing them in every game. Not sure what Nicole Richardson is trying to do to try and combat that at the moment, but it doesn't really seem to be working when you're looking at the numbers. So still something for the Mavericks to be looking at in regards to just penalties, being out of play too much, etc. Of course, they did end up winning this game, and we did see a fairly incredible, which I've never seen pulled off actually from memory, Liv Lewis doing a block from behind of Mary Trollock. Considering how incredibly tall Mary is, I found that very, very impressive. And I don't know, I wanted to see what you thought, Jenna. Do you think it's because of where Mary holds the ball quite back for her
Yes,
shot?
I reckon that's exactly what it is. I think credit to Liv Lewis. She definitely did her homework, but Mary does have quite a low release of the ball. So I think she just saw the opportunity and it worked. I think she got 5 blocks in the end there off of her, which
So
is
good.
just crazy.
On that subject of Mary, there was something that I was seeing continuously throughout the Firebirds game and that I wanted to talk about. So I noticed it at the very beginning of the game, and it's probably been the whole season. I've only just picked it up. Every time the ball starts getting worked down towards the circle, Mary comes out, like not out of the circle, kind of like towards the edge of the circle, and she comes out to be an option. So she's got front position. But Mary isn't going to turn around and shoot from the circle edge especially in normal, in normal point time. So like clockwork, every time that ball gets passed down into Mary on the edge of the circle, she is looking for a quick pass out release option so that she can reposition, spin, and get back under the post into a closer position, right? Every single time there was no Firebirds backup. Every single time. Where was the backup? Where was the wing attack? Where was the center? Where were they? Where was the goal attack? There was no one there. You just had Mary receiving the pass on the edge of the circle, trying desperately to find someone. Where is someone I can pass to? You should know as a team, if that's your play, that as you're running down, you need to immediately be that option for her to pass back to. Go to the side of the circle that she's on. You can see where she is. There's a lot of space as the attackers are working down to see where in the circle Mary is positioning herself. You should automatically be thinking, okay, she's going to want that quick pass back to me so she can reposition. Every single time, didn't see it happen. And we saw panic in that circle and panicked release, uncontrolled passes, and a lot of time it cost them a turnover. I'm very confused as to why that hasn't been picked up.
I definitely agree. And I think maybe that's also part of the reason Mary is feeling the need to come out so high from the circle, because that no attackers are coming forward. So she's essentially being that receiver, that second phase receiver, and then turning around, no one's there. So there's only so much she can do. But I don't know why as a wing or a center, you're not focused on getting to the circle edge and getting their position to support the shooters. So I definitely think that attack dynamic still is just not
Very
clicked.
disconnected. It doesn't seem like
Very.
they're playing the same strategy.
Not at all, no.
So hopefully they can figure that out, because I don't think that Mary is the problem here. I think she's
Yeah.
trying to create a play and
Yeah.
no one's on the same page.
Yeah. No, I would agree. Yeah.
Okay, so game 2 of the weekend, Fever versus Thunderbirds. I thoroughly enjoyed this game. Let's talk some highlights. So obviously Fever won this game in the end. Katie Dehaney. Let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about she
Really?
having what a season. What a season.
Yes.
I know
Yes,
you're a
definitely.
huge fan.
Yeah.
We saw her slapping rebounds out of Romelda's reach a few times, which is such an impressive feat when you have Romelda, who's obviously so tall and is very used to getting her own rebounds when she hits the ring. To have Dehaney slap that out and still be in play is quite incredible. So very impressive.
And I must say as well, it was quite obvious from we were not far into the game, and you could already see the frustration in Romelda purely from the pressure of Dehaney on her, which I also thought was interesting, because when you actually look at the past few weeks of Dehaney's play, it was probably one of her more quieter games as well. So I thought it was quite impressive that she had such an impact on one of her quieter games, so to speak, you know?
Romelda doesn't hide her emotions.
No, not at all. Jordan Kranzberg has just continued to impress me. Her feeding to Fowler, absolutely beautiful. Zoe Kranzberg, in the end there too.
That,
Wow.
yeah, that intercept, yeah.
If that has not earned her a replacement player contract, I don't know what more you could do at this point.
Well, speaking
But
of the twins, we were so impressed with Jordan not only getting MVP, but just the fact that she was able to rack up those net leader points
oh my gosh,
when
yeah,
she wasn't even on for 60 minutes.
yeah, yeah.
Like that
And
is,
I think that just goes to show what a great asset she is to the
oh,
Fever.
I love watching those girls play. So in the first quarter of this game, we had Fever having a beautiful center pass conversion rate, and it was really just working so much smoother for them than it was for Thunderbirds. Having said that, Thunderbirds they stayed in the game. The score did not blow out too much, particularly in the first half of this game. They just had to grind much harder to get
Yeah.
those goals. So the score was still close, but it was just like taking seconds for Fever to convert, and it was taking a lot more effort down the other end. But, kudos to the T-Birds for fighting that out. We saw Fever really pull away in the scoreboard in the final 5 minutes of that quarter in the super shot time period, but no super shots were actually required. This was completely a 1-point game, and they really pulled ahead.
But speaking of super shot time, Georgie Horges
Yes.
with the hot hand.
Let's talk about what I think was a absolute genius move by Tanya Obst in regards to that super shot. It was in the second quarter, I believe, where we know we see Georgie come into that super shot, but we have never seen a Fru and Georgie moving circle for the super shots. They normally will keep Romelda there for the rebound option, and this was a risk that really paid off.
Oh, I agree. And I also think, especially in this game and the previous game, Romelda has only been turning over her goals in the 30s. She's not been putting up, I feel, enough goals to the sides when you compare it to the likes of the other players in the comp that are putting up 50, 60 goals in a game for their side. So to see that change of that moving circle, I thought was a really good thing. And I actually really liked it. And you could see Fever had to sort of also change their dynamic when we saw Fran Williams come on as well to sort of keep up with it. But no, I definitely agree. It was a really good call. But Georgie Hodges is just such a star. She really is. And especially considering she's not been playing much GA as well the past few weeks either.
Yes. Well, we've actually seen her stats struggle a little bit in WA in her wing attack position, I suppose, because some, of the incredible wing defenses that we have in this competition have started to, I don't want to say figure her out, but definitely making her life a little harder. So we have seen her have to really fight so far this season. But again, huge fans of her moving into GA. She has such a smooth transition into like when she swings around the circle and works that ball with the attackers on the edge. It's like she's gliding. Like it's quite impressive, just beautiful netball. One of my favorite highlights, which is probably going to be the title of this episode is when we cut to Dan in the huddle in the timeout, and where he literally just says, Georgie is the threat. I absolutely love that for Georgie, to be honest. Like, what, what a badge of honor for her. It was very clear because at that point she was absolutely nailing super shots. And I think this was towards the end of the game. And shit, the scoreline had
It was in
started.
those last few minutes. I think
Yeah.
the T-Birds found themselves 12 down and then started attacking super shots. This is when we were I know for me, I was very stressed, thinking just keep it cool, play it smart, let's not do anything fancy.
But
And
then we had
because
that
sometimes,
incredible intercept.
oh, and I honestly think that's what solidified it. That intercept and then the conversion. And just, I also want to applaud Fever's. We have seen Fever sort of just get a bit panicked in moments like that towards the end, but the way that they were able to sort of keep composure and just get the job done, I thought was really good. But T-Birds had a great fight back.
Yeah, they
I
did.
definitely think as well, they still haven't quite found out who's going to fill Shamira's shoes. I think obviously it's a big ask, but I think they're still working out the dynamic. And Latanya Wilson is a great player, but I think she is better on the fly and better when she's out hunting. So I think, yes, she has the elevation and the reach in GK, but I almost feel like GK is a bit of a lost position for her. I feel like she wins more ball when she's out there on the fly.
Yes, because we obviously have seen Vissa move into that position on and off, but it seems like there's still a fair amount of growing in that position. And fair enough, you wouldn't necessarily want to challenge her against a Fowler number. Talk about putting her in the hardest position. Obviously, I think that is the position that they're really trying to grow her into, and we'll probably see her progress over the course of the whole season. Let's talk about the biggest controversy to come out of that game, which absolutely blew up socials, particularly in my TikTok comments, and I imagine in Netball Talk, where you are an admin, Jenna. Is obviously we are Fever fans, but I like to think that we're fairly unbiased when it comes to particular calls. And you and I, we don't always agree on things as well. Sometimes we see things differently. So let's talk about the fact that there were 3 out of court calls in the final minutes of that game that, if they had gone Laddie's way, probably would have changed a huge momentum and how the game actually ended up finishing. You just don't know. But 3 calls, that's game-changing stuff. So I can completely understand how incredibly frustrating that would be as a T-Birds fan, because although we went on the ground seeing what the umpire saw, the commentators definitely were, I think, guiding the viewpoint of the people watching at home, and they did have replays, and look, I can definitely see. I don't know if they were all the right call. I don't. Like, a couple of those looked like Laddie wasn't the last one to touch it. You mentioned a few things that the umpires were calling against Fever that weren't right. So
I think with calls like the touches, when 2 players are going out to contest ball, that's landing out of court, when they're both in close contact, it can always go one of 2 ways. We just need to remember as viewers, we're only seeing one angle, and you could watch 4 different angles of one event and have a different outcome of each, So we have to just trust that the umpire that was there standing in front of right when it happened, that the call that they made was the right call, even though sometimes all it takes is that shift angle for it to look like, oh, maybe it wasn't. For all we know, maybe it was, and I think calls like that are hard because they can go 50-50.
We're all a bit biased. I think you and I definitely are, whether or not we try not to be. You're definitely biased towards Fever, and I think I'm definitely biased towards particular Lightning players.
I don't think I am anywhere near as biased as
I think
you,
it's subconscious though. Like, it's subconscious. Like, if it's like a 50-50 call, we're obviously going to lean towards our team in that 50-50 call. Like, and I think it's so subconscious that sometimes we don't even realize. Like, I agree with you. There are definitely some commentators that have very clear biases. And I think sometimes in that pressure cooker of commentating, their real feelings come out.
And
And
I think that's what it was. I
yeah,
think normally some, like, fair enough, as you said, everyone might have their subconscious natural biases, but I think it was very much sometimes you can keep it under wraps, but it definitely felt like they were just letting all the emotion out. And it didn't feel very impartial. And this isn't even me being the only one saying it. This was fans of other clubs that aren't Fever or T-Bird fans that were going off about it on the Netball Talk page saying, oh my God, the commentary. One thing I do want to add was, like, Laddie had those 3 touches, and I know that you said that they could have been game changing for them, but for the deficit they went down and the deficit they had majority of the game, I don't think that can be pointed as the reason as to why they lost, which a lot of people were alluding to was like, those 3 goals, that was it. That's why they lost. But when you think about it, they were about 12 goals down and they got within 6 just from super shots in the last quarter. But they also, if you have a look at the stats, Romelda Aiken had 9 turnovers herself, Petty had 5, and Frew had 5. So if you want to look at other areas that you could have got up on and you didn't, you also need to take into consideration those stats, because when you compare all of 19 turnovers between 3 of your players that were on court and then 3 questionable calls, that you can't just say that was the reason, you know?
but I agree with you, because it's not like, for example, the Fever Lightning game where that call what really was a game changer for them. This game,
Yeah.
there was quite a huge deficit, and Fever very clearly deserved to win that game. They held the lead and played, quite clinical netball for the vast majority of those 60 minutes that they're on the court. So that is indisputable. But if those 3 calls had gone T-Bird's way, they still would have had to score at least
Yes.
2 super shots and then 2 ones on their center pass to get a win, if my maths is correct there. So
Yeah.
it still would have been a very tall order to essentially say, well, Georgie would have essentially scored, 6 super shots in a row in 1 quarter.
Yeah.
So, of course, everything is always a possibility. Absolutely, that could have been a possibility, but probability-wise,
Sometimes you look at the big picture here.
especially when, I guess, if you look at the stats in regards to what T-Birds were sitting at on their goal conversion rate from games, not amazing. So that particular game actually ended up moving the T-Birds down on their place on the ladder. So they are now currently in 4th position and Fever is now 3rd. So it was definitely an important game for them. And, still lots of netty left to play. Game 3 on Sunday, Jenna, was Swifts versus Giants. Now, I would say, and according to the poll that I put in my, game chat on my Instagram, everyone thought Swifts were going to win this game. I don't think there were many people who were willing to put money on Giants winning this game, given that Giants are at the bottom of the ladder and Swifts currently still undefeated. Yet, I was very impressed with how Giants performed in the first half of this game.
Yes, I agree. It definitely unexpected to think that they were close. But when they were so close towards that first half, I was sort of hoping. I think the biggest thing was for me, I thought they just need to be consistent and they need to just continue, because as soon as they falter even a little bit, Swifts was so good with the transition and Giants really struggled to slow that ball into Grace. They sort of resorted back to that long bomb into Grace. And Erin O'Brien was putting pressure on. We actually saw Grace miss quite a lot in this game compared to what we've seen, which I think is a credit to Erin and the fact that she was putting the pressure, but she was just shy on a few of those. And unfortunately, she just couldn't get up.
The most shocking thing that we noticed in this game was the yellow dresses.
Yeah, it was quite jarring.
The start of this game, we had Joe Harton in goal shooter for the Giants, and we actually had 3 missed super shots to start the game from pretty much all of your super shot shooters on the court. So we had 1 from Joe, 1 from Helen Houseby, and 1 from Sophie Dwyer. So all missed super shots because there was only 1 goal in it at this point, and the Giants were playing really good netball. I would say Joe Harton taking control of that attacking end is such a game changer for this team. And I'll touch on later as to why I was so shocked she was taken off for Matisse, who we've said before we love Matisse.
She came off injured.
Oh, she came off injured. I didn't see
She
that.
came off injured. So she came off
Oh,
injured and walked straight to the physio bench. So that's why we didn't
okay.
see her come back on.
Okay. Went off injured. That explains a lot because I do
Yeah,
remember thinking, why was she taken off? Because her positioning and just how smart she is, like there is
yeah,
never not a moment in that circle where Joe Harton is thinking how her body, how her positioning, how her angles can be helping her team. Every
yeah,
single second of that woman's brain on the court is thinking, and you can see it. She's never in the wrong position, basically.
yeah.
And you could really see the change when Matisse came on because, of course, Matisse is an absolute firecracker in the super shots. She shoots from anywhere. She's so reliable, but getting the ball to her harder than getting the ball
Yeah.
to Joe Harton. That is the biggest factor. Is yes, you can be 100% shooter, but how many attempts at shot are you actually getting because you need to actually get the ball. We saw the most interesting battle on the court be in the mid court between these two teams. That is also where I think the game would have been won and lost had there not been that change with Joe coming off, because JLP against Paige Hadley was absolute gold. You could see that JLP was making Paige's life really
Yeah.
hard. It was quite entertaining. We saw Paige getting called for quite a lot of
Mm.
areas and contacts and penalties, and her face was shocked. But considering she's normally such a clean player, that was a surprise.
I think the move of because of the evident frustration from the bit of the tussle between Hadley and Price, I think moving Hadley into wing attack was a really good move for Swifts. But I think what wasn't necessarily the best move was also moving JLP to WD, because I feel like as soon as we saw that change in that center position with Sligo coming in and White coming into WA, I feel like that also sort of completely threw off the dynamic. I noticed a lot that Giants were really struggling even more to get the ball into the shooters, and that sort of, to me, was the turning point of the game. Wheels started to fall off a little bit for the Giants, and I was really curious to see why we didn't even see Jamie put back into centre, considering, I think she needed to be in that
It's
position.
interesting that you say that because when we first saw that move, we actually thought it was a good move to
Mm,
essentially, if Paige was being moved away from JLP because JLP was winning that battle, then it seems smart to then move JLP on that player and continue that battle because so many of those feeds and attacking play had started to shift into Paigey. So she was doing a great job. So it makes sense as to why
mm,
Julie then thought, okay, well, let's move her there, especially particularly because then Swifts had put Ali Smith onto
mm,
centre, which then created this kind of more heavy defense, heavy player on player. But I agree with you. That really
mm.
didn't work out the way they were hoping. Who got moved into centre after JLP got moved out?
Sligo.
Sliger. Right. I actually don't think I've seen her in centre much.
No, she's predominantly a wing defence.
Yeah. I don't think I've
Mm,
seen her in a centre bid before, but I would say yes, 100% you were on the money. The best
mm.
of intentions were made with that move, but it didn't end up paying off the way they were hoping because Swifts really just their attacking end was smashing it by that point. There was a moment in this game that Giants really, really dropped the ball, and that was so from memory, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Sarah Clow got called on a penalty in the centre court, quite far away from where she needed to be in the shooting circle, which left two shooters and one defender in the circle. And Ward was taking the penalty for
Ah,
the ball, right? And at this point, you would think you are down one key defender in that shooting circle. You should be getting that transition to post so easily. What ended up actually happening was Ward had no options in front of her and actually had to go back, which then automatically put Klaus straight back into the circle. And I thought that was such a lost opportunity for them.
it was disappointing because I feel like we saw some like not great thought processes and decisions, but then we saw some really good passages of play for Giants, and it was just so inconsistent though that it just fortunately just went against them in the end.
Kudos to the Swifts for maintaining their absolutely undefeated run.
Well, if they can win next week, that means they've beaten every single team.
So Lightning next week, hey,
That means their last one off their
I'm very
card.
excited. I think the Lightning girls can get it done.
That being said, the Swifts have been winning, but they have not been, it's not like they've been playing super clinical, clean, absolutely perfect, flawless netball. I feel like as the weeks have been going on and the teams have been challenging them, we have started to see little cracks show.
Bruce is back in her top form. She's causing absolute chaos, and we will talk about that game next. But absolutely, I think that the Bruce, Hinchcliffe, and Irvin combo is going to be the defense combo to get it done.
I agree. I'm very much looking forward to that game.
I do just want to quickly mention as well with this Giants Swifts game, we saw what looked like, again, the Giants just conceding when the score got blown out. And it was like they just stopped trying because the last 6 minutes of that game, the Swifts looked completely undefended.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just sad. It's disappointing to watch because they had such a strong start to just see them give up. Lightning versus Vixens. So the final game of the
Your
round.
favorite game.
Yes. Definitely my favorite game of the round. Having said that, though, I was really surprised to see when they announced the starting seven and that Kara was going to be on the bench. Obviously, we later found out, or you informed me, that you saw Belinda chatting about it, that she was spotted with a moon boot, but that she was essentially ready to go on if she needed to, but that she
So
just
the commentary said that, oh, we heard word on the street Cara was spotted at the airport with a moon boot. And Belinda was very quick to say, oh, at this level, it's just a very over precaution.
I think Kath Cox was also saying in the commentary that she was warming up and she looked fine.
Fair enough. If you're in a position to do that, why wouldn't you do it?
Yes.
We have seen Lightning before put a bit too much pressure on injured players like Steph, and it's not paid off for them in the end. So
let's talk about the fact that Riley got her first start. What a huge, huge achievement for her, particularly after what I imagine wasn't a game that she loved last round. Really impressed with what she put out on the court this week. So first of all, her percentage was great. She had a great game. I don't want to dispute that. But I do want to point out there is a significant difference of how the entire attacking end actually works when Kara is on the court because of two reasons. One, experience. This is essentially a Diamonds attacking end. They are very used to playing together. When they are on, they are on. They are unstoppable. It's smooth, it's fast. Everyone knows where they're going to be. Obviously, having Rue in there, a little bit different. Different player, moves around differently in the circle, predominantly a GA over a GS. Whereas Kara also has quite a high reach with those passes. And so we saw a real need for the Lightning feeders to adjust. When they were feeding into Rue, those balls went right over her head. And she wasn't able to reach the sweet spot that we otherwise would have seen Kara be able to reach. And that's just, different flavors that players bring. So that was something that Liz in particular needed to adjust, which she did. So I just want to say that I think Riley has an incredible future for both Lightning and potential Diamonds, but I don't want to, take that away from the fact that I think Kara is having the best season of her career, and I still think that she is the best starting shooter for this side, but it is incredible to know that you have that kind of bench.
Yeah. And also someone that can step in when someone else is injured. So
exactly. And we talked about that earlier as well in how good Lightning was about that, about getting Riley on the court, having minutes, putting Steph on the bench when needed, taking Kara off when needed, really getting those combos warmed up for things exactly like this to happen.
No, I agree. I think it's the smartest thing to do. You have a bench for a reason, keep them fresh, because the last thing you want is an injury and then pulling someone cold off the bench that's not played in 6 rounds. The game I felt like both sides actually really started the game really strongly, but we did see some little silly mistakes and errors creep in both ways.
So we saw Steph having to reposition at one point 3 or 4 times because she didn't feel comfortable taking that shot. That is not an unheard of thing. That's just a skillful GA knowing that, she's not comfortable, she needs to reposition, right? But if we had had Cara in that circle, she is always in a position for Steph to pass off to her. Steph had to pass out 3 or 4 times at one point, and Rue was holding, I think, a defender under the post instead of coming out and being an option, a backup option for that shot.
Yeah, but funnily enough, I did have a similar point down where that I did notice as well. Lightning were passing that ball a lot in the circle, and I'm like, as soon as you get that ball, turn, shoot, because every extra pass you're doing is another opportunity for that ball to be turned over.
Tiring.
And yeah, and it's exhausting. And I believe there was one point where I think she literally passed it 3 times and then went for the shot, didn't follow it up, and it didn't even get the rebounds, and it went straight out of court and lost it after passing it around however many times. And you just think,
that's the one I was talking about as well.
yeah,
I would have liked to see her actually come out, draw a defender with her, give Steph a one-on-one, or at least just kind of come out and create a bit of a triangle and open up the space, because it was really clogged up, and you could just see Steph was just trying to get a better shot and it wasn't working out. By the 4th time she had to do it, she just took the shot. Something I'm sure they'll look back on at what else could have been done in that moment. I want to really make a point of Lisa Mai because we haven't spoken about her enough. She is having a phenomenal season. We didn't see her start the season because of a calf niggle, but my goodness, is she making herself known now. She is fitting into that Diamonds attacking end like she absolutely belongs there. What I think they've managed to adjust this season compared to last. So last season we saw Steph and Liz really struggling to find a balance because they're both just leaders in that attacking end and used to taking a lot more of the workload. And so we just saw that just not gel as easily last season. This season, they've really worked that out. If anything, Lisa Mai has actually taken a chunk of that load herself. So we have a real clear split in like feeding between Lisa Mai and Liz Watson, which really frees Steph Fretwell up. Huge kudos for them identifying what needed to adjust and making that happen.
One thing I want to note as well, considering it was a Vixens home crowd, it was very quiet. But even from the get-go, like it was very the atmosphere coming through the TV. It was very
Maybe they just knew something was in the water. Something was coming. Which we'll touch on as well because something was coming.
In this game, it was blaringly obvious to me that this game was definitely going to be won on the defensive efforts of both sides. I feel like both sides had the stronger defense, and it was just the conversion. And by the time they got it to attack, that was when they were starting to either not convert or make a bit of a silly error and lose ball. And I felt like that was happening both ways.
So in the third quarter, we saw Austin taken off. She was benched. I believe she was negative net points at that point. Not great. And then we saw Garvin obviously stay on the court, and we weren't sure because I think at this point, slim pickings on the bench, right? When Kira and Sophie aren't performing, you can only take one off and replace them with Lily. We saw Sophie Garvin miss 3 goals under the post, causing turnovers. And then that continued with the fact that Lily saves the Vixens team.
The young shooter comes on, benches a diamond.
Yeah. And we've seen her do that consistently, not once off. We've seen her consistently come on against the same defensive units and absolutely smash it.
Exactly. Which, credit to her, I think she's playing amazing the way that she can come on, because these are the opportunities you got to take with 2 hands. It's just not good enough from our diamonds.
No.
The shooters. Garvin, I found myself questioning even towards the end there when we were on super shot time. Garvin's not going to be going for those super shots. Why was Austin benched in place of Garvin when you could have had 2 people attacking the super shots? And I don't think it was till like the very end of the 4th quarter that we finally saw that. And that was after Garvin had turned over so much ball by missing under the post.
such a change from last season.
They
How
are, and they're typically known for being such a clinical, strong, solid team, especially in their attack. But there's just so much disconnect this season, and you just got to think like, is there something going on? Although there was a big announcement.
more on Lily, I think that it's fair to say she should be the starting GA at this point. And I understand how, daunting that would be given that you have the Diamonds attacking end, in your team. So it would be logical to think, okay, well, that's our best starting seven. But it's not. I mean, if you look at how the games have gone so far, the complete inconsistency. I think we've only seen the Vixens put out a golden performance that's worthy of them once so far this season. Whereas every time Lily comes on, she outperforms everyone, even Bruce, who was having a killer game. Do you think we should
Yeah.
see Lily starting?
I would be interested to see if that were to change, how that would sway the dynamic. But would you bench Austin then and
Yeah.
have really?
I would bench Austin, or I would essentially move the GS bib between Austin and Garvin, and
Mm.
if a change needed to be made. But at this point, the only consistent shooter for Vixens is Lily.
Yeah, no, I agree.
She's definitely getting herself noticed.
Considering, well, I'm not even sure when she's signed until, but everyone's off contract next year, so it's going to be a big free for all. We're going to see a lot of movement, so
She's so
never
exciting
know.
every time that
Mm.
happens.
Very keeps things very
Chaos,
fresh.
absolute
Mm.
chaos.
Love it.
Well, that is the end of our game analysis. Now let's talk about some huge talking points in netball world. The
Mhm.
biggest bombshell of the weekend was, of course, Simone McInnes announcing at the end of this game that she is actually going to be stepping back from Vixens as a coach. She didn't use
Mm.
the word retirement, and we
No.
saw the post-game chat with her, and she also reiterated that she's not saying she's never going to coach again. It's just her time at Vixens after 13
Yeah.
years has come to an end.
Very interesting. I don't think anyone even saw it really coming, but it just makes you think, who's next?
Well, they did actually chat about this in Pivot last night as well. And Kath Cox was saying how it needs to obviously be a coach who has their high performance accreditation. And speaking of which, and who I think would be my pick, would actually be Dylan Nexhip.
So
He
this
has,
got dispelled. He doesn't have the high performance. He's got the other
oh,
coaching accreditation. Yeah.
when did that get? When did that get
I
correct?
saw it on the page today.
Oh,
He's got a different accreditation, so he doesn't have the high performance. He
I,
doesn't have the elite one. He's got a different one that's not the elite one you'd need to be head coach.
I wonder if he can start studying.
He's doing a lot of really good work with Swifts at the moment. So do you invest in that future?
But if an opportunity came up for you to be the coach,
That's also true.
like, my goodness, you would grab it with both hands. And I think he's a great coach.
So maybe you throw your hat in the ring anyway.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, these spots don't come up very often.
So the other hats that she threw in the ring were Lisa Alexander, who was obviously our previous Diamonds coach and would obviously be an incredible find in that position. And she also mentioned Nicole Richardson. I don't know if she would be the best pick for the Vixens because we need someone who is an attacking specialist because it's not necessarily Vixens defense end that need the work. It's their attacking end. So, I mean, I suppose that's the same with Dylan as well, isn't it? So perhaps Lisa is the best option.
Because I know that in the post game conference as well, she was asked about it. And she said, I would have been happy to keep it under wraps, but, Netball Victoria sort of want to get hiring ASAP. So,
Oh, did she? I didn't see that bit.
yeah, it was in the post game conference.
Ooh,
So, yeah, very interesting.
a definite push there.
Definitely, yeah.
Obviously, it makes sense from a business point of view, but at the same time, like it feels a little icky given that she's been, such a respected, high achieving coach for Vixens for 13 years. It's not nice to think that perhaps she was pushed into that announcement sooner than she was ready. But business is business, I guess. Let's talk about the thing that has everyone in an absolute tailspin at the moment. And this was actually something that I said on my TikTok I didn't think was true, but now I have to go back on what I said because what the hell? Let's talk about the fact that we may very well see Gretel Buetta making her return to SSN sooner than we all expected.
Because I those social medias, I look at all the background. I'm one of those sleuths, and I thought, she's getting really fit. She's doing a lot. That's interesting. But I was in my head was thinking, all right, cool. You have the likes of Dwan off contract at the end of this year. Could we possibly see a return next year? But it wasn't until that they questioned Stacey Mirankovic straight up, saying, well, could we see her as soon as this year? And she goes, oh, you never know. And then that immediately for me went, oh.
That would have been the opportunity to shut down those rumors.
They're saying, oh, you never know. So
yeah.
Oh,
I did not think it would be coming. I honestly didn't, because when we saw that footage, it was very easy to kind of like discredit those suspicions really quickly because of the work that Gretel does with Talent Locker and that this was a clinic that they were together doing. So I thought, no, there's no way. It's just wishful thinking, Look at us now.
Are we seeing her prepare to come into SSN or are we seeing her to prepare for international netball? There's no rule saying that she has to play club to be eligible.
Oh.
For diamonds.
Interesting. But is this a matter of game fitness though? Be diamonds fit? That's a big ask.
Yeah, she has, when you think about it, we're in May. She has until October if her goal is diamonds. Also, with the injury cloud around Tipper Dwan, could we even see her come in as a temporary replacement?
My concern for her and a rushed return after baby is that we see essentially people essentially expecting her to perform at how she was when she originally stepped away with her pregnancy and then being underwhelmed at a postpartum comeback, the same way that we saw Kumwenda and the expectation being ridiculously high and then people being disappointed that she wasn't meeting those expectations because the woman had just had a baby and postpartum takes time and getting back to that level takes time. And so I guess that would be my concern for her is that she's coming in under a cloud of a lot of fan excitement and expectation.
That's a good point. But what I also got to think is no two people are the same. We don't know what's been going on the past few months in the background. We don't know what she's been doing. We don't know. Everyone's different. So you can't assess every situation the same. Would I be opposed to it? Absolutely not. But I would be really curious. I'm just really curious now to see what's going on because if anything, it almost felt very orchestrated with the way they sort of dropped the news and then everyone immediately had, oh, we've got Stacey on the panel and then, oh, also Gretel. And it felt to me, I was like, okay, this seems very like strategic. And I don't see them putting someone out there, especially in Diamonds level and someone of Gretel's caliber without knowing if she was ready or not to go.
Well, I think in regards to our Diamonds attacking end, we look like we desperately need Gretel Buetta. Since Steph obviously retired from internationals, we've seen just a real unfortunate inconsistency mirrored in the Vixens attacking end, I guess you could say. Having said that, I have a lot of hope for Kara. She has really turned her game around this season. Very excited to see her as a starting shooter. And then, in my dream team, having Gretel as a starting GA with Kara. Because obviously when we did have Gretel in Diamonds, she was predominantly from memory GS because Steph was GA. Whereas in Firebirds, she played GA. So will we potentially see her injected as that starting GA with Kara in GS as she's having such a stellar season too?
If anything, it's just raised a lot more questions, but something to keep our eye on.
Did you see the details they've come out with the grand final package thing?
Yes, I did.
Like the river cruise and everything. We are going. We are going.
Yeah. Pending approval from my doctor, I will be there.
Oh, shit. Hang on. Wait, what's the timeline look like for you? What will that timeline
It's
be?
the timeline will be fine, closer, but it'll be fine.
So you might end up having your baby in the Eastern States.
It would still be too early. So like that's what I mean. Like technically it's fine.
Don't give me that
I'll
one.
be there.
It's happening. It's happening. We're going. We're going.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm buying a ticket.
Absolutely. I am so excited. 2025 grand final tickets. The Suncorp Super Netball Grand Final will be held at Melbourne's iconic Rod Laver Arena on Saturday, the 2nd of August at 7:30 p.m. Expanded program of fan experiences new to 2025. River Cruise event, mixed social club, exclusive inner sanctum experience. Premium experience tickets on sale to the public on Wednesday, the 21st of May at 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time via Ticketek. What does mixed social club mean?
Don't know. This is a new thing.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of your Netball Besties. Please make sure to follow us if you aren't already, and also leave us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed this episode. It really means the world to us. Let us know in the comments what you think about everything that we've talked about today. I know there are so many opinions online, so please put them in our comments and let's chat about it.